It is time now for the God's Will broadcast with Brother Chase Robinson. And now today's broadcast.
Good morning. Blessed to be back. Glad to be back. This morning I'm going to read out of 2 Samuel chapter 11 verse 2. Give you time to turn over there. Before I start reading, I want us to really grasp where sin begins, where those things start in our lives, and the way that we like to defer a thought and a physical action. I might think it, but I ain't doing it, so I'm in the good. And I'd like us to really, with an open mind, just start to consider where the sin began. Start to realize that we, from a young age, there's a good chance we've developed an ungodly hunger, an ungodly appetite by the things that we've let our eyes see, by the things that we've saw, and we've let those things come into our lives, and we've kind of predetermined the way we're going to feel about things, the way we're going to react to things. But out of 2 Samuel chapter 11 verse 2, it came to pass that David arose from his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. This morning I'd like to come to you. I'd like for you to think. Right here it says David walked out and he saw a woman bathing, and he looked upon her. David did not turn away. David did not. He didn't do the things that he knew he should have been doing this morning. He stood and stared this morning. He developed an appetite this morning that he couldn't fulfill. He grew lust this morning. I don't want to talk to you this morning about lust or adultery or marriage. I'm just going to talk to you about sin. We're going to use these for an example. And if you go, I ain't going to read it, but you go farther into chapter 11, you'll see that lust, it grew into sin this morning. That lust was sin. It grew to lies, and it grew to adultery. And ultimately, it ended up being a murder this morning. He, allowing the things in front of his own eyes this morning, developed an appetite that he could not fulfill this morning. It was an ungodly appetite, and with that appetite, he went into like I said, the lust become a lie, the lie become adultery, and ultimately the adultery become murder this morning. In Proverbs 27:20 it says, hell and destruction are never full, so the eyes of a man were never satisfied. I'm here to tell you this morning that sin is hell and destruction this morning, and with that sin you will not get filled. You will not fulfill that appetite this morning. And it says in that hell and destruction, your eyes shall never be satisfied. You cannot fulfill sin this morning. And from a young age we took on what we perceived to be love, and that love was lust. We took on what we perceived to be good, and that good was bad. We was out of God's will this morning. We did not push ourselves into God's will this morning to know the difference between good and bad, between sin. We developed an appetite at a very young age, and we predetermined the feelings in our life. And if we have that ungodly feeling this morning, that ungodly appetite, I'm telling you that it is hell and destruction, and it can never be fulfilled. The sin that we see, it all starts with the eye this morning. Everything that we put in front of our faces from the time you was a child till now, it has grew to be where the sin begins, all the way back into Eve, when Eve saw, she was told of the apple, yes, but she lusted over it once she seen it this morning. I'm telling you, from the beginning till now, the sin began in the eye. What we put in front of our own faces this morning determines the way we're going to react in it, determines the way that we're going to which way we're going to go with it. And there's a good chance if you're not digging in the Word and you're not following Jesus Christ this morning, you will turn into the sin, and that sin will never be satisfied. That sin will continue to grow this morning. You cannot fulfill that. Matthew 5:28, but I say to you, who has looketh has committed adultery, and that's when Jesus himself was talking. For some reason in our minds we have a feeling just because I think it ain't bad, just because I don't do it, I have some moral upstanding of myself. I'm telling you this morning that Jesus said the iniquities and the transgressions was the same right there. To lust was to commit. Iniquities would be iniquities would be the thought this morning. If you'll hang with me, I'll try to get a point across. Iniquities would be a thought this morning. The transgression would be a physical thing this morning. It would be the act of adultery. Iniquity would be lust. Transgression would be adultery this morning. And I'm telling you, in Matthew 5:28, he says, he who hath lust has committed adultery. He put our iniquities and our transgressions together there. He took it a moral step farther this morning. I'm telling you that we got to quit trying to separate our iniquities to our transgressions, our thoughts to our physical act this morning. We have to start getting our mind into the way of Christ this morning, not just the way we physically walk, but the way we spiritually walk this morning. I'm telling you, we have to get our mind set on Jesus, not just our bodies. This old body will die. This old body means nothing. I'm telling you, we have to get our spiritual self. We have to take our iniquities to Jesus this morning. Iniquities is a spiritual thing, and that's what Jesus Christ wants from you, is something spiritual this morning. The transgressions is physical. He never asked nothing physical of us this morning. He wants you to turn your iniquities over to him, your thoughts over to him. Jesus said that our iniquities and our transgressions are the same this morning. And I'm telling you that those are the same. All the way back down when David saw Bathsheba, he created the lust. That was his iniquity. Now the adultery was the transgression this morning. But it made no difference because it began in his eye. It began in what he wanted to look at. It began in what he put in front of his own face. He did not turn and go back in. He stared this morning. And I'm telling you that it led to a lie, which led to adultery, which led to a murder, ultimately. In 2 Samuel, it'll tell you that. So his iniquities and his transgression was the exact same this morning. And Jesus tells us in Matthew that your iniquities and your transgressions, your thoughts and your actions are the same this morning. Get your mind on Jesus this morning and quit worrying about what you're doing with this physical body. I hope you're going to church this morning. But if you're just taking this old physical body to a building to be seen this morning, you ain't doing much at all. I'm telling you that he wants your thoughts there. He wants your spirit there. He wants you to grow in him spiritually this morning. Don't just go in with your transgressions. Take your iniquities with you too. Jesus tells us that they're the same. And you say, oh, preacher, well, I mean, how can I change the way I think? How can I do that? Well, I'm telling you that sin begins in the eye. If we go, and I can tell you a fix to this, what the Bible tells us. If you go into Matthew 5:29, it says, if thy eye offend you, pluck it out this morning. Now, he didn't mean physically pluck your eye out this morning. He meant get the things out in front of you that you know to be offensive to yourself this morning. I'm telling you that whatever you know, you can't lie to yourself this morning. You have to hold yourself accountable. It don't matter what the world thinks of you. It don't matter what they know, what they don't know. You know your iniquities this morning. Be honest with yourself this morning and pluck out the wicked in front of your eyes. Psalms 101:3 says, I will set not a wicked thing before my eyes this morning. It tells us all through the Bible. I've bounced from New Testament to Old Testament for them to keep bringing up the wicked of the eye, the destruction of the eye this morning. I'm telling you that there's something to that. And with David, we seen there was something to that. That what he saw began the lust that he had for Bathsheba this morning. I'm telling you that it tells us to remove the wicked things we put in front of our eyes. It says to remove those things, to pluck them out. Set no wicked thing before their eyes. You have to remove it all. We have to fill that spot with our eyes. We have to start digging in this word this morning. If you can take the bad out of your life, you're still going to have a void there. And I'm telling you that you can fill that void with the truth of this book, with the truth of Jesus Christ. You can move the negativity out of your life. You can bring positive things into your life. It's a choice that you make. It's a choice that you make every day. I'm telling you that you have to remove the bad and bring in the good this morning. It's not just going to happen by itself. But for all that to happen this morning, you got to get out of your own way. You got to be honest with yourself this morning. You got to know your iniquities. And maybe you don't know your iniquities. But I can tell you one thing. There's a book I'm staring at right now. You can go read about yourself and be truthful and honest and pray to Him. You can find your iniquities in this book, and you can begin to work on them. You remove the iniquities, the transgression doesn't matter. That's what Jesus was saying in Matthew. If you remove the iniquity, the transgression doesn't matter. If I ain't thinking it, I ain't going to do it this morning. And I told you that from a young age we built an appetite, an ungodly, sinful appetite that cannot be fulfilled. And I'm going to tell you, in John chapter 6, 58 this morning, it says, "This is the bread which come down from heaven, not as your fathers did eat, man, and are dead. He that eateth of this bread shall live forever." I'm telling you right there, He told us how to fulfill the appetite. It was not in sin. It was not of this world. Don't eat from the world. Don't eat from the sin. Remove the iniquity, and you can eat from Jesus this morning, and you can finally fulfill something in your life this morning. You can fulfill something that you need to be fulfilled. You won't be looking into this world and looking into sin to fulfill it this morning. There's a man that hung on a cross this morning, and He rose again, and He said you could eat of Him. You could eat of His bread this morning. And with that bread, you could be filled. You could live forever. He is the restorer this morning. You got to be honest with yourself, and you got to accept one thing. You got to accept this. He restores things, and with the resurrection was a restoration. And I'm telling you this morning, for that to occur, there had to be a little destruction. To restore a car, you got to tear it down and build it back. Well, so you got to be enough honest with yourself and have enough faith in Him to tear yourself down and allow Him to build yourself back this morning. And once you do that, once you rebuild a car and you restore that car, the whole point after that is sustaining that restoration this morning. So to hold that restoration that you've done this morning, that Jesus come into your life and done, you've allowed Him to come in, you want to sustain that, then you have to stay in His Word. You have to understand your iniquities this morning. You have to dig in this Word and go to Him. He will sustain your restoration this morning, but you have to be honest enough with yourself to take your iniquities to Him. To let Him have those iniquities. You tear yourself down, humble yourself. He'll rebuild you. He'll restore you this morning, and He can move the negative and replace it with positive. He can fulfill an appetite that you spent, just like I did for a long time. You have an appetite for sin, and that appetite is hell and destruction. It cannot be fulfilled this morning, but in Him, He can fulfill an appetite. You haven't been fulfilled if you ain't got Jesus this morning. I can tell you that. You ain't been restored this morning. You still hunting for it. You're trying to feel something that can't be fulfilled. I don't know what it may be in your life. It may be drinking. It may be drugs. All those things do is cover up. You put a new paint job on a rusty car, eventually the rust's going to come back through this morning. I'm telling you that He'll tear it down and He'll rebuild it this morning. He can remove that iniquity from you, but you got to take it to Him with a humble heart this morning. That's what I tell you. You have to be able to understand there's going to be a little tearing down, but to look past Him, glory be to God, there's going to be a restorer this morning. There's going to be something greater than the destruction this morning. A lot of this in the Bible, the more I read it, the more I kind of lean towards how important that resurrection was to the restoration. I'm telling you that we have to understand, for us to become better, we got to let it all go. For to let it all go, you got to be tore down just a little this morning. I'm telling you that He said He could fill your appetite this morning. You got an appetite for sin. You got an iniquities. We all have iniquities. I'm telling you, you got an appetite that can't be fulfilled. When you can remove the pride and take your iniquities and be honest with yourself, the worst thing you can do to lie to yourself this morning, that's the worst thing you can do. I'm telling you, if you can hold yourself accountable this morning, take your iniquities unto Him, He will rebuild you. He will restore you this morning. I'm telling you that He said He was the bread that you could be fulfilled on of everlasting life this morning. I'm telling you that we have to be able to humble ourselves to know that He's got us, that we got faith in what He's going to do with us this morning. When you can get to that point, when you can humble yourself to know there's going to be a little bit of a tear down for a restoration. But boy, to glory be to God, the restoration's always beautiful this morning. The restoration's always better than what we had before. I'm telling you this morning that He can do that in your life. He can give you something that you've never seen before. He can remove the negative and bring positive this morning. He can do all the things that you don't think can be done. He can do it all. The God I serve He can still heal the blind. He can do those things this morning. I'm telling you that if you're still if you're still hiding in your own iniquities because you don't have transgression this morning, if you're still thinking it but not doing it, oh, I'm telling you, He can heal your mind this morning. He can take your mind. He can do things with it that you didn't know was capable this morning. I'm telling you, you got to get out of your own way. Become humble to the fact that you have iniquities. Be honest with yourself and take the iniquities to Him this morning, and He will give you a restoration. And between you and Him, you can sustain that restoration for everlasting life. Yes, sir. I'm telling you this morning that there's something there. There's something in your iniquities. I'm telling you, you got to understand them and be humble enough to know that you're going to be tore down for the restoration this morning. I just hope you can all, hope I got myself out of the way, and I hope you can all get yourselves out of the way this morning. I hope you can take the word that God gave me there, and I hope you may not get none of them out of the day, but you just think on it. Think about what you're doing in your life. Think about what you're thinking about daily. Think about what you're putting in front of your own face that's building a bad appetite this morning. Yeah. To remove the bad, you got to replace it with good. Well, the best thing I know is Jesus this morning, and second to Jesus would be this Bible. I'm telling you, He was the truth and He was the Word, and I got the Word so I can hold on to the truth this morning. I'm telling you that you can take all your iniquities upon Him, but you got to be honest with yourself and start figuring out what those iniquities are this morning. Quit trying to split the transgression and the iniquity, the spiritual and the physical, because Jesus said in Matthew that lust was adultery. I'm telling you, He put our iniquities and our transgressions together. We will never be able to hold ourselves. You think you hold yourself to a moral standard this morning, we'll never be able to hold this carnal mind to the moral standard of Christ this morning. And that is up to Him. But He can restore that mind, but you have to know that it's Him restoring it this morning. Remove the pride, become humble, and take your iniquities unto Him, and become spiritual through Christ, and grow in that every day. I hope you can get your pride out of the way and yourself out of the way and just be honest with yourselves this morning. I don't need a call. I don't need a like. I don't need nothing. What I need you to do, I need you to get out of your own way this morning. I need you to start learning about your iniquities. I need you to start leaning towards Christ this morning. Christ can restore those iniquities. He can remove the bad of your mind and replace it with good. And you can help Him by digging in this Word. You can start taking negative things out of your life and filling it with positive this morning. I just hope you can remove the pride and go on with it like that and follow Christ this morning. I'd like to go to a word in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I come to You with a very humble heart this morning. I hope that we can start to realize what You were telling us. There's no way this morning that we can take this carnal mind and become so moral of You this morning. You are. We have to understand our iniquities so we can get rid of the transgression this morning. We don't become like David this morning. We don't look upon things to build an appetite that we can't feel. We got to look into You, and You'll fill the appetite that we don't even know we have this morning. But to do that, we have to remove ourselves. We have to be able to humble ourselves enough to know there's going to be a little bit of a tear down for the restoration this morning. And I just hope that you can get into somebody's heart this morning. If anything, if nothing happens this morning, it's a thought that lingers with them a day or two. They start questioning their iniquities this morning so they can turn into You and grow into You this morning. I humbly pray to You that You can touch hearts this morning. And I hope I've got out of my own way and delivered the word You wanted me to deliver this morning. In Jesus' name I do pray. Amen.
You have just heard the God's Will broadcast with Brother Chase Robinson. You can get in touch with Brother Chase at 404-430-1795, 404-430-1795. And make sure you listen next Saturday at the same time for the God's Will broadcast with Brother Chase Robinson.